Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have everything, money, fame, and power, yet still end up broken, lonely, and forgotten? It's the haunting insecurity of our generation, that no matter how high we climb, it might all collapse into emptiness. And perhaps no story captures this fear better than the rise and fall of the Hilton dynasty, a family whose empire was built on luxury, but poisoned by ambition, betrayal, and an unspoken curse that destroyed generations from within. The Hiltons weren't just hotel owners, they were the architects of an illusion. Their wealth symbolized success, but behind the golden curtains lay a story that could make even the rich shiver. It all began with a man named Conrad Hilton, the father of American hospitality and the godfather of generational ambition. Born in 1887, far from the lights of New York or Los Angeles, Conrad grew up in the dusty, restless deserts of New Mexico, a place not even recognized as a U.S. state at the time. His father, Augustus Hilton, was a Norwegian immigrant who came to America chasing dreams like so many others. But Conrad didn't just want survival, he wanted power. By the time he was 25, he'd already seen how fragile success could be. He entered politics, hoping to reform the system from within, but quickly realized the horrifying truth, that politics wasn't about serving people, it was about controlling them. Disgusted by lies and corruption, he walked away, vowing to build a different kind of empire, one made not of votes but of walls, rooms, and wealth. When the oil boom hit Texas, Conrad saw opportunity written in fire. He turned toward banking, chasing the scent of money. But when his first deal collapsed, fate pushed him toward something unexpected, a small, overcrowded hotel in Cisco, Texas called the Mobley. It had just 40 rooms, but those rooms were always full, rented out in shifts to oil workers desperate for rest. Conrad bought the hotel in 1919, and within weeks he was drowning in profits. In those rooms he discovered his true addiction, not money, but control. He wasn't selling comfort, he was selling the illusion of importance, and that illusion became his legacy. By 1930, Conrad Hilton owned 5 hotels across Texas, but when the stock market crashed in 1929, the empire he'd built threatened to crumble. The Great Depression devoured men like him, the ambitious, the proud, the dreamers. But Conrad was different. He refused to lose. While countless tycoons jumped from buildings or drowned in debt, he clawed his way through the darkness, refusing to let go. Even in ruin, he believed he was destined for greatness. That belief became his armor, but also his curse. Because from that point on, every decision he made would be driven not by love, not by purpose, but by fear. The fear of losing everything. It's the same fear that haunts us today. The fear that our success is temporary, that our worth exists only while we keep climbing. When the economy finally recovered, so did Conrad. But the man who came out of that storm was not the same one who went in. He was colder, sharper, obsessed. He expanded the Hilton brand beyond Texas, opening hotels across the nation, and eventually the world. He wanted the Hilton name carved into history, but in chasing immortality, he sacrificed intimacy. His first marriage to Adelaide Barron collapsed under the weight of his ambition. They had 3 sons, Conrad Jr., Barron, and Eric. But his real love affair was with business. When Adelaide left, he replaced her not with peace, but with something more intoxicating: fame. In 1942, he met Zaza Gabor, a Hungarian actress and socialite who had fled war-torn Europe in search of safety and stardom. She was radiant, fearless, and untamed. Everything Conrad thought he could control. To the world, their marriage was glamorous. To them, it was suffocating. Conrad treated Zaza not as a partner, but as a possession. He changed her name, called her Georgia, and demanded obedience. She once said, "He wanted to own me, body and soul." Their marriage became a gilded cage, and within that cage their only child was conceived, Francesca Hilton. But the story of her birth wasn't one of love. It was one of pain. Zaza later claimed that Francesca was the result of an encounter she never consented to, a horrifying accusation that shattered the illusion of the Hilton glamour. Francesca's life began with trauma, born of control, trapped by legacy. And from that first breath, her fate was sealed. While Zaza's Hollywood career exploded, filled with diamonds, cameras, and 9 different husbands, Conrad buried himself in empire building. But behind the boardrooms and hotel lobbies, he was losing control of what truly mattered: his family. His eldest son, Conrad Hilton Jr., known as Nicky, inherited not his father's discipline, but his darkness. Nicky was rich, handsome, and destructive, a creature of privilege who treated life like a casino. He drank, gambled, and rebelled against everything his father built. At 23, he married 18-year-old Elizabeth Taylor, Hollywood's shining star. The media called it a fairy tale, but inside their mansion, it was a horror film. Nicky's temper was volcanic, fueled by alcohol and rage. Their marriage lasted less than a year, ending in violence and tragedy. One so devastating that Taylor lost a child. The Hilton name was no longer just a brand. It was a scandal. And yet, Conrad couldn't stop expanding. He built hotels like fortresses, symbols of wealth and endurance, perhaps hoping they'd protect him from the chaos of his own bloodline. But the curse was spreading. His other sons watched, silent witnesses to the corruption that money had sown through their veins. His obsession with control had created monsters, reflections of his own unchecked ambition. The Hilton empire grew, yes, but so did its rot. By the end of the 1940s, Conrad Hilton had built one of the greatest hotel chains in the world. But in doing so, he'd lost every piece of his soul that made him human. His family name, now famous across continents, carried not just prestige, but poison. His hotels stood tall and gleaming, but inside his bloodline, the walls were already cracking. The empire he built to last forever was already beginning to eat itself alive. And the little girl born in the middle of it, Francesca Hilton, would one day pay the price for her father's sins. The story of the Hiltons isn't about wealth. It's about what wealth does to those who worship it. It's about the curse that hides behind comfort and the pain that power breeds. And as the years unfolded, that curse would destroy everything Conrad built, turning luxury into loneliness and legacy into tragedy. They say money solves everything. But what if money is the very thing that destroys you? That is the silent fear eating away at our generation. The idea that success might not free us, but trap us. For the Hilton family, that fear became prophecy. When Conrad Hilton's empire reached its peak, the world saw him as a titan, the man who brought luxury to every corner of the earth. But behind that glossy image was a family unraveling, one tragedy at a time. His eldest son, Nicky Hilton, was already beyond saving, a ghost of privilege, trapped in a cycle of addiction, rage, and broken promises. After his violent split from Elizabeth Taylor, he tried to rebuild, but the rot ran too deep. He was the heir to an empire, yet couldn't even control his own demons. Every night became a blur of gambling tables, liquor, and lost souls. His father had built hotels to host the elite. His son was now banned from most of them. And the cruel irony? Every dollar that enabled Nicky's destruction came from the fortune his father had created in the name of success. As years passed, his recklessness worsened. He'd wake up in luxury suites he didn't remember renting, surrounded by strangers who only knew him for his last name. Nicky wasn't living the American dream. He was living the nightmare of inherited power without purpose. Meanwhile, Conrad's empire kept expanding. Massive acquisitions, international hotels, and a new kind of wealth worship spreading through America. He had everything he wanted, except a legacy he could trust. His other sons, Baron and Eric, seemed more stable, more loyal. But even that was a fragile illusion. Baron, the middle son, was everything Conrad wanted in an heir. Sharp, ambitious, and business-minded. But Conrad's obsession with control didn't allow room for equals, even among his children. He believed that love made men weak, and that emotion had no place in empire building. To him, family was business, and business was war. This twisted mindset slowly infected everyone around him. His relationships became transactions, his affection a negotiation. The Hilton household was no longer a family. It was a corporate battlefield. And while Conrad tightened his grip, his daughter Francesca Hilton grew up in the shadows, watching her half-brothers inherit everything while she was left with memories and resentment. Francesca's life was tragedy born of privilege. She was the child of two powerful names, Hilton and Gabor, yet belonged to neither world. Her father's empire had no place for her, and her mother's fame offered no refuge. Zaza Gabor was a Hollywood icon, glamorous, untouchable, but as she aged, her fame became a prison. Francesca often said she was invisible, that her mother loved the camera more than her own child, and her father, he barely spoke her name. In his eyes, she was the product of a mistake, not a legacy. Imagine that, to be born into wealth beyond imagination, yet die feeling unwanted. That was Francesca's inheritance. By the 1950s, the Hilton brand had become a global symbol of luxury. Conrad had opened hotels across continents, each one standing like a monument to his willpower. But inside those golden walls, his family's foundation was turning to dust. Nicky, his once promising heir, was now publicly disgraced. In 1954, he was arrested after a string of violent outbursts, including one at his own hotel. His name, once an asset, had become a liability. Conrad tried to cover the scandals, but the media loved nothing more than the fall of the mighty. Nicky eventually remarried, had children, and tried to settle down, but he couldn't escape himself. The addictions consumed him until his heart gave out at just 42. 10 years before his father's death, the heir to the Hilton empire died alone, destroyed by the very world that made him rich. For Conrad, it was the ultimate punishment. The empire stood tall, but the bloodline was collapsing. The one thing he couldn't buy was peace. As he aged, the empire became his obsession, and he began to think about his legacy not as a family, but as a kingdom that needed protection. He founded the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, a massive charitable organization meant to preserve his name for eternity. To the world, it was philanthropy. But deep down, it was control, a way to keep his fortune out of the hands of those he no longer trusted, even his own children. When he died in 1979 at the age of 91, his will shocked everyone. 97% of his entire estate, worth hundreds of millions, went not to his family but to the foundation. Her half-brother Baron Hilton was given one last chance to prove himself. The will allowed him to buy back the Hilton Hotel shares from the foundation, which would have given him control over the entire company. But the foundation refused. Years of legal battles followed, cold, ruthless, and public. The courts eventually sided with Baron, but by then the damage was done. The Hilton name was now divided between family and foundation, between blood and legacy. And the ghost of Conrad Hilton still haunted them all. For Francesca, life after her father's death was a long, painful decline. While her brothers inherited the spotlight, she inherited the shadows. Her mother remarried 7 more times, including a bizarre union with Prince Frederick von Anhalt, a man decades younger who claimed royal blood but was really chasing the Gabor name. When Zaza grew old and frail, von Anhalt seized control of her estate, cutting Francesca out completely. Lawsuits followed, accusations of manipulation, fraud, and abuse. Francesca tried to fight, but she was up against a man who controlled her mother's life and money. As Zaza's health deteriorated, Francesca found herself living out of hotels, the cruelest irony imaginable. The daughter of Conrad Hilton, the man who built the modern hotel industry, was now paying nightly rates to sleep in the empire she should have inherited. By 2015, Francesca was living in poverty, struggling to afford rent, relying on friends for help. One night she suffered a massive stroke. She died alone in Los Angeles at the age of 67, homeless, heartbroken, and forgotten. Her mother never even knew she was gone. Von Anhalt didn't tell her. Zaza died a year later, unaware that her only daughter had left the world before her. The Hilton curse had claimed its final victim, not through violence or scandal, but through silence. The world looked at the Hiltons and saw luxury. But behind the glimmer, their story is a mirror of something far more terrifying. The emptiness that wealth can't fill, the loneliness power can't heal, and the generational wounds that no amount of fame can hide. The Hiltons didn't just build hotels, they built a monument to human insecurity. The more they gained, the more they lost, until all that remained were ghosts wandering the corridors of a billion-dollar legacy. What if the thing we spend our entire lives chasing is the very thing that destroys us? It's the question our generation avoids asking, because deep down, we already know the answer. We glorify fame, crave validation, and dream of wealth, believing that once we get it, everything will fall into place. But the Hilton family's final chapter is a brutal reminder that sometimes, the higher you rise, the more your soul begins to rot. When Francesca Hilton died alone in 2015, the world didn't notice. Her death was a silent footnote in the dynasty her blood had built. But in the digital age, the Hilton name wasn't dying, it was mutating. While Francesca's tragedy faded, another Hilton was becoming a global phenomenon. Paris Hilton, the great-granddaughter of Conrad, was about to resurrect the family name, not as a symbol of luxury, but as the face of a new kind of emptiness. Paris grew up surrounded by everything her great-grandfather had once dreamed of: power, privilege, and prestige. Yet inside, the same curse lingered. She was raised in mansions, but behind those golden gates was a world colder than concrete. Sent to strict boarding schools as a teen, Paris faced physical and emotional abuse that would later define her life. She once said, "They broke me. They wanted to destroy who I was." And maybe they succeeded, because the Paris who returned from those schools wasn't the same girl. She was a product, perfectly designed for a world obsessed with image over identity. As the early 2000s dawned, the age of reality TV began, and Paris Hilton became its first queen. Her fame exploded overnight, not for her intellect or achievements, but for being the living embodiment of excess. The world didn't just watch her, it devoured her. The Simple Life, her reality show, was more than entertainment. It was the birth of influencer culture. She laughed her way through absurd luxury, teaching an entire generation that fame could be a career. But beneath that flawless surface was pain, the same pain that haunted every Hilton before her. What the world saw as confidence was actually armor. Every party, every photo, every diamond-clad smile was a way to bury the trauma. She was raised to believe emotions were weakness, that being perfect meant being untouchable. But perfection, just like fortune, demands a price. The paparazzi followed her like predators, waiting for a misstep, a scandal, a breakdown. And when it came, the leaked tape, the public humiliation, they feasted. Overnight, she went from icon to punchline. The world that had worshipped her tore her apart, proving once again that fame isn't freedom. It's a cage made of flashing lights. But here's where the curse took a darker twist. Because instead of fading away, Paris learned to weaponize her downfall. She turned humiliation into branding. Every scandal became marketing. Every mistake became money. It was genius and terrifying. The Hilton empire had shifted from hotels to attention. Where Conrad built towers of stone, Paris built towers of influence. She didn't sell rooms, she sold herself, and the world bought it. Millions followed her every move, her every word, her every filtered moment. But behind the filters, she remained the same broken child who'd once cried behind a locked door, wondering why the people who claimed to love her wanted control instead. The Hilton curse wasn't gone, it had evolved. And then came Nikki Hilton, Paris's younger sister, the quiet reflection of a louder world. She married into another powerful dynasty, the Rothschild family, merging two of the most controversial names in finance and aristocracy. On the surface, it looked like the curse had finally lifted. Wealth, status, stability, the perfect life. But every photograph, every interview, every perfectly polished event carried an eerie sense of repetition. The smiles looked rehearsed, the happiness choreographed. Because the Hilton name has never truly belonged to its owners. It belongs to the world, to gossip, to greed, to legacy. The modern Hiltons became masters of illusion, not the family who lived wealth, but the family who sold it. They didn't need to rule industries anymore. They ruled perception. But at what cost? The empire Conrad built with steel and sweat had become an empire of pixels and pretense. And maybe that is why the Hilton story feels so familiar to our generation. Because we all living it now. We all build digital empires, chase validation, brand ourselves for the world to consume. We are the new Hiltons, addicted to attention, haunted by the illusion of control. Baron Hilton, Conrad's son and the patriarch of the modern Hilton line, died in 2019 at the age of 91, the same age his father died. And just like his father, he too left most of his fortune not to his family, but to the Hilton Foundation. It was as if history had come full circle, the curse repeating, the bloodline forever caught in the same loop of greed, guilt, and giving it all away to the dead instead of the living. The Hiltons built their world on the idea of legacy, but what they left behind wasn't legacy. It was warning. Look closely and you'll see. Every generation of Hiltons traded something sacred for something shiny. Conrad traded love for empire. Nikki traded sanity for pleasure. Francesca traded truth for survival. Paris traded identity for fame. And all of them ended up haunted by the same emptiness. Because no matter how big the empire, how bright the spotlight, how endless the fortune, the void inside always wins. That's the real curse. And maybe that's the question we all need to ask ourselves. Are we building lives, or are we building illusions? Because in chasing what looks perfect, we might be repeating the Hilton story, just on a smaller scale. The dynasty may live on, but its soul was buried long ago, beneath the gold and glamour of its own making. The Hiltons are not just a family, they are a mirror of modern humanity. Proof that when wealth replaces meaning, and fame replaces purpose, the downfall is no longer tragic, it's inevitable. If this story opened your eyes to the darker side of success, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Pastify, and share it with someone who still believes money fixes everything. Because next, we uncover an even deeper secret. The dynasty that controlled not just hotels or fame, but the very flow of global money itself.